Thanks, Jeff. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning to Bill Gillard. By the way, his poetry collection is a vast poetry collection. He's written many books. I don't know how you do it, Bill. You're like when you look up the definition of prolific, your picture is in there, I think.
Yeah, that's Jeff. As you know, and you share your poetry with all of us, which is very generous. When the ideas come, they come, and one of the really important skills as a writer I've learned in my old age is that I've learned how to finish stuff, and then I've learned also very critically how to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
To just say I'm done with that, and I'm gonna do this other thing now. And you probably know it from poems. I mean, you can work on a poem for many, even lifetimes, and not feel like you got it right. Mm-hmm. But the idea that I'm finished with that, and I'm going to move on to the next thing. And maybe it looks like being prolific, but it's really just like coming to terms with like it's good, and I'm going to do the next thing, and not worried is it perfect.
Yeah, that is so cool. And you have 4 books coming out. Just to give people an idea, you have 4 books coming out this fall. That's unbelievable. 2 are with what you call 1016 Press in Waukesha. And one is a collection of ghost stories set in Northeast Wisconsin. The other is a young adult fantasy novel. Maybe we can, throughout the show, we can touch a little bit on to give folks a preview. And of course, you're at billgillard.com, and I'm sure all of your links are there for all your fans.
Sure. Yeah, all of my fans. My books are available everywhere on Amazon and all that, and on the publisher's website. But yeah, 1016 Press it's great. It's a great small press. It's out of Waukesha. It's one of their imprints is actually probably their main imprint is Orange Hat, and Michael Brown down there does a great job. They do a lot of children's books, and then they have this 1016 Press, which is books for older children, adult children like me. It's just been really kind of a joyful experience working with him, getting these 2 books ready to go for the fall. And that ghost story collection that'll be out in I think like a month. It'll be out in a month. It's done. It's waiting, ready to go, and in time for Halloween. That's another example of just saying, "Yep, it's done, and I'm going to move on." These stories in that the title of the collection is The Wrong Shadow, and that's one of the titles of the story. And it started with just there's so many. We've got it's not a long history of kind of after Europeans came and settled here. Of stories and of development and things like that, but it's a really interesting history of and there are a lot of really good like legends and ghost stories and things like that are around here. So I kind of immersed myself in some of that research, and then I was just writing my own stuff and like on local settings, and I would walk around sites of old like paper mills in Appleton, or do some research on the Peshtigo fire, things like that, and they all kind of found their way into these stories. And I learned a lot, and I think I came up with some, at least I hope are some pretty good stories. And it's a collection of ghost stories, and they're locally set, and they're suitable for all ages. There's nothing crazy in there. There's just a lot, I hope, kind of spooky stuff that's kind of set in familiar places for our friends and neighbors in kind of Lake Winnebago, Fox River kind of area.
We're with Bill Gillard, Oshkosh area poet, UW Oshkosh professor, and you're listening to Poets Have Something to Say. If you're wondering why is Jeff live on Facebook, and one of the great things that I remembered that last time we talked. You told me that you love the sound of great writing, and I kind of like how you said that, how great writing sounds. It's not only what it looks like, but what it sounds like.
I think last time we were talking about that, and that kind of informs one of my recent projects too, in translation, and that time science fiction. But I think we were talking about, I heard on the radio somebody speaking, and I think it was Swahili. It was a poet speaking a language that I no idea what the words were. He could have been, it could have been on anything, but I knew it was poetry because of the sound of it. And I talk to my students a lot in poetry writing class about, how important it is to see your poem in many different ways as you're revising it. And I advise them to read it out loud and to themselves, and like out loud, like say all the words, and don't say it fast, just say it, like embrace each word. And if there are parts that you stumble over, your reader's going to stumble over them too. If there's sounds that you can't quite make with your mouth together, the words that bump into each other, it's an opportunity to smooth them out. And there are tools online too, even for poets. You could have your computer read your poem to you.
Yeah.
Best thing is to just hand the poem cold to a friend and have them read it to you, and just see what do you hear from that. And I don't do first drafts out loud, but I do like drafts 4 through 30 out loud for sure, because that sound, the sound that I'm aiming for, that's a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to poetry. And even in writing prose, the beginnings of paragraphs, ends of paragraphs, they have to, invite the reader in. So the sound of it is, and that, you and I have been to, a million, poetry readings and things. We appreciate when we're in the presence of somebody who is just, it's almost hypnotic. The feeling when somebody is really just doing a poem and kind of inhabiting that poem really well.
Yeah, you talk about somebody like D.G. Clearing or Hamilton. They do definitely take it. They take it to a different level, don't they?
Sure. Yeah, and we interviewed both of them this summer on the Author Showcase, Oshkosh, the program, and that's I do that with Tom Cannon, who's brilliant, who's poet laureate of Oshkosh, and with Dixie Jarko, who's an author and short story writer, poet, and we just had so much fun with James Hamilton and D.G. Clearing, and they had an opportunity to perform as well, and you're just you're just in the presence of a magician at that point, so it's just fun.
Yeah, you definitely get, when I was watching DG perform, he did this when we had our Pi Day poetry back a year and a half ago in Fond du Lac, and he was reading a poem, and he had recorded his own voice in a tape recorder, giving out the digits of pi, of course, endless digits of an irrational number, right? So he's got this in the background, and then he's reading a poem over that. I mean, just how does somebody figure that out, that they're going to do that? It's just unbelievable. Yeah. And then when it happens, I mean, you surprise I guess that's what we're all trying to do as authors. We're trying to surprise our readers. The last thing you want to be is predictable or dull, and right.
To be always pushing the envelope like that, like DG did with that Pi Day performance, that's brilliant, and I'm looking forward to the next March 14th.
Absolutely, I think we might have to have one in 2026. We're with Bill Gillard. We're at Poets Have Something to Say, the podcast. It's being broadcast live on Facebook. That's exciting. And then if you missed the show, you can catch it on my YouTube channel, the Poet Laureate channel. And last night I recorded a song. I found, this is kind of an interesting story. We were cleaning out closets, my wife and I, and in the way in the back of our den closet, I found this cassette in a box. And the cassette was a couple of love songs that I wrote for my wife back in 1993. And I had almost forgotten about those, totally forgotten about those. Played it, wrote the words down, was able to rework it, and I put it on my YouTube site last night. It's called Life Can Be Beautiful. And it was in my courting stage with my wife, where everything is it's the beautiful stage, you're in love. And that was pretty fun. So anyway, that's my side story. But
that's great, and that's discovery, and that's a great example of collaborating with yourself over time as well. I mean, we all have pieces of writing like that. I think it's on a cassette, but man, it goes into the box, into that closet, because maybe it's not. Maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you weren't a good enough musician to pull off that one. Maybe you just couldn't. You couldn't. It was too new. You couldn't be able to step back a little bit of it. But collaborating with your younger self on that, you were able to bring it home. And even if it's like putting it away for a week and taking it out again, a month is even better. A year. We've all found older pieces of writing. We're like, whoa, this has some life to it, and not that first stanza, but this middle stanza, I really like it.
Yeah.
That collaborating with yourself is I mean, it sounds a little bit weird, but it's what you're doing. Your young self is in the room saying, I got this idea, I can't do it. Your older self is saying, like, okay, I know what we should do. Maybe I didn't have that original idea in my head, but I see how we can bring it home.
Yeah, that's exactly, you captured the feeling beautifully. And I was 33 years old when I did that, and now I'm going to be 66 in November, so it's double the age. But I think I was able to put my unique stamp on it for the age I am, and it still has a lot of meaning. I've had a lot of great comments, so if you want to check that out, it's the Poet Laureate channel that I uploaded that last night. We're with Bill Gillard. I want to get to the next subject. This is about you, not about me. If a clod be washed. Now, that is, I think we might have last time talked about, you were working on this, and it's like a novel, but it's all poetry. And
it's a verse novel, and it follows his high school biology teacher through one day of his life.
Wow. Yeah. Tell us a bit more about the ideas, and where did you come up with, writing it in this style, in the poetic style throughout the work? Where did you come up with that?
Yeah, I thought I was writing a short story. I thought I was writing maybe like a few short stories, but it just it didn't want to, get into that, like that all the typical, the tools of fiction that I was bringing to it, it wasn't working. So I just stripped it down. I stripped it down into just these little pieces, and it started to, it retained a narrative of this guy, waking up, remembering some dreams early, and he's teaching, and it's this boys' high school in New Jersey. I used to teach at a boys' high school in New Jersey, so don't go too far into fiction here. But, waking up and just trying to navigate the day and questioning, and things happen that cause him to kind of like question what he's doing and his long career. Like, has he had any effect? Was this all a mistake? And in the evening, and this is later in this first novel, that kind of a crisis, this solitary kind of crisis of like, what does it mean? What am I doing? What have I done? Have I, wasted my life? Have I actually done like bad things with my life? Have I kind of like used my gifts well? All these kind of questions that I struggle with, and this character does too. And it's the form. It's really good. I recommend the verse novel form if somebody has a kind of a narrative in mind, and it's coming out as poetry. Because you almost don't feel responsible for like the later that day. After he had lunch, those kinds of things. You just have these like windows into the narrative that the reader needs to connect for themselves. And so, it's a really interesting kind of the way it kind of fell together. And the title, "If a Clod Be Washed," it struck me as kind of funny out of context. But it's from John Donne's poem, do not send for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for you, and it's a question in that part of John Donne's poetry is like, what do we owe to each other? What's the social contract? What are we alone? Are we part of a community? What do we owe to each other? And it's something I guess we all kind of think about and struggle with as our political lives, our political situation. Our nation is becoming fragmented.
Yep.
People arguing that we don't owe anything to anybody else, and I only disagree with that, or people thinking that I did this all by myself. Like, come on,
Yes.
that road that you drove to work on, all this, who's paying the fire protection and police, and who trained your workers in public schools and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, we're all individuals, and we cherish our freedoms in the United States, and we'd like to think that an individual can make a difference. And so there are all these tensions kind of running through this verse novel, and it just is it's a day. So I knew how to kind of organize the poem. All like, okay, that's a lunchtime poem, and this is a kind of an after school poem, and this is definitely a late night poem, and so it kind of came together like that. And I first novels are not a super popular genre, but I really had a lot of fun writing that one, and that's available too. That's out there. It was published by Kelsey Books, to do a good job.
That's cool. Bill Gillard's our guest on the Poetry Podcast. Poets Have Something to Say. If you have a comment or question on Facebook Live, feel free. We have a couple people online here. So many questions here. You wanted me to mention too the Routledge book. That's young adult fiction?
It's the title of the. It's my second book for Routledge, and Routledge is a big academic publisher. It's the largest academic publisher in the humanities, and they're based in the UK. So it's been really fun working with them. For the most part, they're a giant corporate entity, so it comes with its own frustrations. But this is the Routledge anthology of global science fiction origins.
Oh, wow!
And so there are many anthologies out there that have science fiction stories from all over the world. And the stories generally have been written in the last, 10, 20 years or so. And there are many anthologies out there that have early science fiction stories, but they're focused on the U.S. and the U.K. and France and, kind of the usual suspects. Mm-hmm. And my book is the first one that draws together very early stories from, Bolivia and from China and New Zealand and Serbia and Japan, and just from all over into one place that shows how science fiction originated in each of these cultures at different times for different reasons. And the most interesting, I hope the stories are interesting. I hope the anthology is interesting, but the process was really fun, and this has a strong application, I think, to poets as well. Mm-hmm. I've been working with translators also from all over the world, translators who are, interested in I'll use the Serbian example as a good one. Dragutin Ilic wrote the first science fiction play that was ever produced, and he was Serbian. And a professor at University of Novi Sad in Serbia, I wrote to her and I said, you did a translation of this. Is this the only translation? He said, yeah, and it was a class. I designed a class around this, and she had her master's degree students working on different sections to translate this play into English, which is miraculous. Mm-hmm. And so part of that is in the anthology. There's so many great poets out there, opportunities for poets, native speakers of English, who also know another language. And you don't have to know it enough to write in it. You just have to know enough to read well in it and to translate it into English. There are opportunities out there for poets to bring kind of this piece of the world to Americans. And they're, and to English speakers worldwide. There are, is such a shortage of those sorts of kind of global voices that English speakers, especially Americans, have access to, and it's an opportunity in poetry. And there are publishers out there who are ready. There are there are contests and prizes out there for best poetry book in translation. And to all the poets listening, I mean, think of if you have a language other than English, and it doesn't have to be perfect, your knowledge of it.
Right.
You could read something from somebody else, could be new, could be old, and work with them to translate it, and you put a volume out there in English, and it'd be kind of like a beautiful thing, and maybe a real kind of service to readers of the English language. But anyway, that Routledge Global Science Fiction Origins collection, which will be out in November, is a bunch of old short stories. When I say old, like 1880 to 1940 or so, from all over the world. None of them from the U.S. or the U.K. or France.
Right.
I see all of these voices that haven't ever been heard before in English.
I see Franz Kafka is in there too.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I love Kafka, so Kafka gets a pass. He's Austria-Hungary, and embracing him as a science fiction author, not just an author of the weird dystopian whatever, but as a science fiction author, and profoundly influential. So I thought he had a toe in the door as well.
Absolutely. Bill Gillard is our guest, Oshkosh poet and UW Oshkosh professor. And I guess what you're also bringing here is the origins of science fiction worldwide, right? Am I missing the point, or is that?
That's true. If you study kind of origins of science fiction, it's told from kind of the industrial heart of kind of the British Empire and United States, and kind of response to changes with the telephone and with powered flight and with communication of all types and transportation and all of the developments that were happening in the late 19th century and the early 20th century. But these other places where science fiction emerged for a great variety of reasons, and also maybe didn't emerge for a great variety of reasons, especially when there were kind of colonial powers that would, for example, outlaw when the Russian Empire occupied the Ukraine, for example. They outlawed publications in the Ukrainian language. So everything was published in Russian. Similar thing happened with the Japanese occupation in Korea. Japan brought amazing technological developments to their colonies, Korea included, and the Korean writers began to associate these scientific advancements with this kind of occupying force. And so that literature kind of began to look backwards into kind of more traditional Korean values and kind of rejected science fiction kind of ideas for several decades. Now, of course, South Korean science fiction is a world leader, and that's happened for other reasons as well. But all of these different origin stories, so very fascinating, especially how science fiction and fantasy related to kind of more, mainstream or respectable or, higher quote-unquote literatures. It is really interesting to me, and it's a book I wanted my students to have, and so, I made it.
Yeah, the deep well of history that you expose yourself to, you can almost call yourself a historian when you're...
possibly. And I'm hopeful that the book causes others to, because I'm literally, Adela Zamudio in Bolivia, I'm just like dipping my toe into that world, and I'm hopeful that it will cause people to say, well, what else is going on in Bolivia? What's the story of Bolivian science fiction? And then, a book that I can read that will fill in all these gaps that I don't know. And so it's hard to be one person and say, here's the story of the world.
Right.
It's kind of, it's not a super, you can't hope to come up with anything definitive. What you can hope to do is maybe just say, can we talk about this? And then maybe let people who know more, and people know about, Russian science fiction or Chinese science fiction, and those conversations are all getting going now, and I hope to just maybe be not answering any questions, but maybe saying hey, this is cool, let's talk about it.
Well, the beauty of what you're doing is this all can connect us. This is the connecting with the world. This is a world culture where we probably, to survive as a world, I'm being politically courageous here, but I think to survive as a world, we need to ditch the us against them, and we need to connect. And what your work is doing is through your historical research and all of this is helping us connect with all different kinds of cultures.
And what we're doing right now, Jeff, and I really appreciate what you do, your efforts, and with on a small scale, the writing group that you lead and sustain, and then this larger podcast and your many appearances. I mean, what we're all doing is we're exactly what you said. We're trying to find connection in this fragmented and kind of alienating world during these times, and it is. It's selfish. We all like to have friends and we have fun, and we all like to appreciate it and to meet other people. But at the same time, this is maybe the most important work any of us can do, is to make connections, kind of between and among us, and not just, hey, you're a poet from where? From Appleton, so am I. Like, we have a lot in common. But, like, trying to find ways to reach out and to, build small bridges here and there, wherever we can find them, and that connection is just so profoundly important. And it's the human to human. It's me talking to you. It's like smiling at a stranger. Whatever it is, it's those little connections that can kind of reinforce all of our places in kind of a larger community.
Right, and even the connection with me, I think you hit the nail on the head. Is such a big thing with me, with being poet laureate and the books I write, and the Wordsmiths Writers Club, and it's 11th year, by the way, and that's pretty cool.
That's amazing. Every Writers Club gets to like the 11th week. It's hard to get to even the first year,
Right, yeah.
11 years, amazing.
Yeah, so I feel the connection, and even this may seem like a far-off analogy, but when I'm like on vacation, I was on vacation with my brother and sister at a place called Justin Trails. It's a beautiful bed and breakfast out near La Crosse, near Sparta, and there were a lot of other people at the B&B. It's a huge B&B. It's and then we had a breakfast in the morning, and I tended to just kind of gravitate and meeting new people, and where my brother and sister are more into their own cliques and family, right? And they were kind of amazed. It's like, why are you talking to all these people? But I think that's really analogous to what I'm doing with Poet Laureate and reaching out to people like Bill Gillard and meeting. I've met so many cool poets just by doing this show. I mean,
that's amazing.
D.G. Clearing and Hamilton and poet laureates from Sheboygan and Wausau and all over the state. Occasionally, I'll even go outside the state. Now, coming up in a couple months, I've got, I don't know how I got this, but I've got the country of New Zealand's poet laureate on. And he's agreed to do 20 minutes. So that's pretty cool. Anyway.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations. That's fun. That'll be fun.
Thanks. Okay, we did talk about this briefly in the beginning of the show. I do want to ask you about the Netflix. You also have you're irons in the fire, Bill. You have tons of irons in the fire. One of your irons in the fire is actually researching I guess somebody might say this is kind of a macabre subject, but it's fascinating. I know my daughter-in-law is fascinated with like serial killers and things like that. And, it's like, oh my God, like they might say, oh, Bill's weird because he's into that. But there's a fascination with that. Tell us about the Netflix special that you were actually a part of. Robert Bloch is the author of Psycho, right? And then that was modeled, and correct me if I'm wrong because you're the expert on this, that was modeled after Ed Gein. Is that right? Psycho?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Bloch is he's a Wisconsin author. He grew up in Milwaukee, and he wrote Weird Tales. He was corresponded with H.P. Lovecraft, but then he went to Hollywood and he worked on a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows. He worked like Alfred Hitchcock Presents and Thriller, and just did screenplays, teleplays, all kinds of stuff. And he had a long and brilliant career, and he published dozens of novels and hundreds of short stories and all of that. So, he's a very prolific writer. and it was in 1959, 58, 59 when news started coming out of Plainfield about this thing that happened. This guy Ed Gein, who everybody knew, and everybody thought he was a little weird, but everybody's a little weird, and and everybody knew everybody's business, and everybody, it's a small town. Mm-hmm. How could and Block started thinking, like, how could somebody be this kind of person living in a small town like Plainfield, living in a small town like Waiawega? Like, how could this happen without everybody knowing about it? And so Block just started thinking, like, well, he had to be, like, in contact with the public, but also kind of off by his own. And then he thought, well, maybe he runs a hotel out by the highway where he comes into contact with people. And so the character of Norman Bates came into his head, and Block, it took him 6 weeks to write Psycho, and then he sold the novel and moved on to the next thing. And Alfred Hitchcock bumped into Psycho, the novel, and bought the rights, which is a whole story, and made the most famous, like, scary film, horror, psychological horror film of all time. It was profoundly influential from a filmmaking standpoint, from a thematic standpoint. It made millions of dollars in a way that no other film like it had. And so, I've got a book coming out from the University Press of Mississippi. It's kind of a literary biography of Robert Bloch. And I recently traveled out to the University of Wyoming, where all of Rock's hundreds of Bloch's like notes and papers and manuscript drafts and letters and memorabilia, they're all there at the American Heritage Center. The American Heritage Center at the University of Wyoming is a great place. That's where all of Stan Lee's stuff is, the creator of Spider-Man, the creator, from Marvel Comics. Right. All of his notebooks and drawings and all of that, they're all just right there. And you could go in there, you make an appointment to research, say, I want to see this box and this box and this box. Then you just have it in your hands. Like, I had blocks, like handwritten first drafts of things, and I was working at using them, but I had them in my hands, and all the photographs and all the memorabilia and stuff. These academic libraries, especially, state universities, they are so powerfully important in maintaining and collecting and maintaining, important pieces of American history. So that book has been a joy to write, and we're approaching the finish line of that one, and so that'll be out in the spring. There's a documentary I did. It was on MGM Plus, and now I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube, because it's been out, I think, for 2 years. Yep. But it's called Psycho: The Lost Tapes of Ed Gein. Right. Wow. And it's a lot of the shtick is that they found, like, tapes of Ed Gein's voice, but I'm in later episodes where it shows how this story turned into Psycho and, like, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and how it affected, because Ed Gein wasn't the first, celebrated serial killer. It's probably, Jack the Ripper, but, for the United States, this was a big one because it was in the heartland. It wasn't anything that could be explained, in a small, town, this pure American town of Plainfield, Wisconsin, that this would happen. And that documentary's out. I'm mostly in episode 4 of 4, and it was fun. It was really fun to do it. I'm one of those kind of academic talking heads, right, where I talk about how Robert Bloch intersected with this story, and how Psycho came about, and then how the movie came about, what happened to Bloch afterward.
Well, we'll have to tune into that one. That's I'll have to look for show number 4, which is on YouTube, you said, right?
Yeah, and the title is Psycho: The Lost Tapes of Ed Gein. Oh, wow.
I'll have to, and I think I saw the movie Psycho when it must have been 35 years ago. That maybe my wife and I can get some popcorn and watch that again, just for fun.
Sure. Yeah, or come on up to Waiawega each fall. It's the Waiawega International Film Festival. Oh. And they have Psycho Fest.
Oh, no, I don't know.
It's,
I don't know if I'm ready for that one.
They screen Psycho, and I do an introduction to the film, and then I do a question and answer afterwards. And it's just a fun night, because it was written, and Waiawega Film Festival takes place in the Opera House in downtown Waiawega, which is like a block from the Ann Street home where Robert Bloch actually wrote the novel. And so it's like this homecoming for the film, for all of us. Like, yeah, this is where it happened.
Wow, that's so amazing. Bill Gillard, in the final minutes of Poets Have Something to Say. If you have a question or question or comment, maybe a concern. Who knows? You might have a concern. Concern. I'm in the customer service business, so I'm always saying at the end of each call, I say, "Do you have any questions or concerns?" So that's where that came from. Okay, so now let's talk about the lighter side of Bill Gillard too. What do you do for fun? You were are you a retired hockey coach? Is that right?
Yeah, I retired. I coached for a long time though. I started coaching in New Jersey, and I coached my daughter when she was coming up. But she, when she reached, I think she was like 13, and it was very clear that I had taught her everything I knew, which is not a lot, but I had taught her everything I knew, and she was ready for some better coaching. And I became a dad in the stands at that point.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, a lot of fun to travel, especially in the summer. It's fun to just get out there. And I was spent a weekend up in Minocqua with my wife. Just like getting out and exploring Wisconsin, which is the home state for neither of us. So we've got a lot of exploring to do, and heading out to wherever, Two Rivers, to the beaches there, and just having fun, getting out and about, bring our bikes and things like that.
They call it Trivers out there, though, right?
I don't know. I'm not a local.
That's what they call it. Yep, you got it. If you're going to talk localese, it's Trivers.
I said it wrong. Oh, no. Trivers. Okay. I know.
Yeah, so what's ahead for Bill Gillard? You have got, I hate to keep reusing this cliche, but irons in the fire seems appropriate.
Sure, I've got a book of poetry coming out. It might actually be 3 books once I'm done, but a book of poetry that is also kind of narratively driven. It's about music, and it's about New York City, and it's set in and around 1981. It's just really kind of an explosively experimental kind of music scene there, and it just follows these 2 high school kids as they try to navigate their lives in New York City, which is a very, very dangerous place at that point, with all of this music just exploding out of everywhere. And that's going to be a book of poems, and that'll be out in the springtime.
That sounds
great. And I'm also playing around with putting together a radio show,
there you go.
like a radio series, that. I'm aiming for the Oshkosh media, the Oshkosh local Oshkosh radio station, but maybe to expand it. It's gonna involve poetry and music, and maybe some short stories. And I hope it's kind of very kind of dream-like, the way it kind of dreams intrude on our sleep, and they're maybe sometimes they're fragmented, maybe sometimes they seem to last a long time. All those kinds of dream-like things, and so playing and recording music, learning the new tools of recording are simultaneously they can feel constrictive sometimes, but what you can do these days with digital audio workstations is just amazingly fantastic. You can sound good even if you're not good, at music. And so putting together this, adding music, I'm also looking at it as a way to connect. So I'm working with a guitarist. I'm working with a drummer who also plays a little guitar. I'm working with a couple of other poets, and just trying to draw people in. Hey, say you want to be part of this. You want to work with me on this, and so that's in its beginning stages. But
yeah, wow.
I've cleared a couple of big projects off my desk in the last few days, in the last few weeks, and once the school year gets underway this week, which I'm not stressed about at all. No, that's a lie.
You're a pro.
Once the school year gets underway, I'm going to really kind of settle into writing and editing these 55-minute chunks that are going to be musical and dreamlike and full of poetry.
That sounds great. Now, do you produce music? Do you play an instrument and sing yourself?
Sure. Yeah. And what I've what I've been doing is more recitation for this, but yeah, I'm not good, but I play guitar and I play bass and things like that. And with these new tools, there's a lot of work you can do with percussion, with just with sounds in general.
Right.
And so yeah, I'm having fun with these tools that allow you to record things that sound actually pretty good.
Yeah, maybe you could teach me a few things on that, because I have my Poet Laureate channel, a very simple mixer that goes one channel for voice, one channel for guitar. So I still need to learn a lot more. Maybe you can teach me some stuff with how to
Love to have you up to my little basement workshop.
There we go. Yeah, we'll get some serious creativity going. Well, anything, by the way, before I close, I have something I customarily do. I pick out one of the poets that I like, and I read a quick poem.
Good.
Now, this guy is somebody you know very well. His name is Thomas Cannon. This is from his book, Wisconsin Time. It's a chapbook called Wisconsin Time. And this is one I really like. It's called The Old Poet. You've probably heard it already. The old poet, with slow hands, he unfolded the poem from his pocket. He had the drive once, desire tucked us into obscurity. We keep on, we're glad we do, yet with suspicion that it won't mean anything. And read to me, fluid world, static dreams, our legacy. The words, clay, earthy, crude, beautiful, tell more than a story, though we shuffle dirt over them with wistful feet. He collects his words, sprinkles them where he can, hopes someday posterity will meander in his forests. That's The Old Poet from Thomas Cannon, the Oshkosh Poet Laureate.
Yeah, Tom's a brilliant writer.
He really is. And I think he has a new book out, right? A new novel, is it? I believe it is.
Yes.
I'll have to.
And his whole catalog is well worth it, and it's a mix of short stories, novels, and poetry. He's another very prolific guy.
Tom Cannon was my major motivation for getting to be North Fond du Lac Poet Laureate, getting this program started, and it is a marvelous way to share creativity. Any final thoughts, Bill?
I just really appreciate this work you do in bringing us together in times when we can all feel alone and kind of up against it. You bringing all of us together, whether it's me and you talking or people listening, or talking about these other wonderful people we've been talking about, Tom Cannon and James Hamilton, all these other folks who we know and love.
Yep.
It's great to be reminded that we're part of something bigger, something really good.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Bill Gillard. Great update today, and maybe a couple years down the road, we'll kick the can down the road and see where we're at.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks. There's Bill Gillard joining us live from Oshkosh. And if you missed the live version here of Poets Have Something to Say, you can certainly go to the Poet Laureate channel and see the entire edition. This is kind of a sneak preview because we usually do the show on the 1st of the month. So this is officially the September 1st show. But for members of the North Fond du Lac Poet Laureate and the website on Facebook, this is a free preview. So on to better things. Have a wonderful Labor Day weekend, and over and out.